How
Yes,
is
you
that going
can't
to
say Saudi
influence you?
Arabia. Sorry, you can't say Saudi Arabia in Yemen. You say America in Yemen because the Saudis, they've tried their luck with the Yemeni and they failed. You see, Saudi Arabia tried, according to Prince Mohammed bin Salman, to move the war into Iran. This is what he said, no my words. He on a on public interview, he said, "We will move the battle into inside Iran." He tried and he failed. What happened is that the Iraqi set up several meetings for Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the Chinese managed to have an agreement between the two countries. However, this war starts in June 2025 and in February 2026. What happened is Donald Trump told us that the all the airports and all the bases and all the Gulf countries facilities were used. The New York Times told us that the Saudis told Donald Trump that he needs to go to Iran and achieve the job completely because he cannot leave Iran without being completely submitted. Otherwise, Iran will become a regional power, which is the case today. Iran has become a regional power because it did not submit. Then we have the Gulf countries participating to this war, according to General Kane, who said that we fought shoulder to shoulder with all the Arab and Gulf states against Iran. There were clear confessions or information leaking about the United Arab Emirates participating to the war from the first day Iran was bombed. So because of that, and because Iran was not defeated, now the Arabs are in front of a new situation. They in front of Iran, that is a regional power, saying, I decide. Iran is not really using gloves with its relationship with the Arabs. It's saying, I don't want to attack you. I did not attack you. I exerted my right to defend myself according to Article 51 of the United Nations Charter. I have the right to defend myself. According to Article 33:14, you have given your territory to the Americans. I have the right to attack you. But now you see that I have survived. Now, if you want us to live in a state of peace, we have to make sure that you are not going to give your territory again to the Americans. But the Americans are saying, well, if they want or not, we are going to use their territory. The Americans give a damn about the opinion of the Arabs. This is why now the Gulf countries are going toward Turkey, Pakistan, and Iran, saying, well, let us agree and have a deal about security in the region because we need to sort that out. We can't live in a state of war all the time and then start talking about what we have done to you, what you have done to us. So the situation today in the Gulf is the Gulf countries are meeting to say, we're very upset and we do not accept that Iran bombed us. However, the Iranian geography is there. Iran is not going to go anywhere. It is where it is in front of all the Arab countries, and they have to live with it. And Iran has to live with them. This is where a mutual agreement, where there is no attack on one country and another, and vice versa, is important. And today the Arabs see the importance. In the past, they thought they can be protected by the Americans. This is why they gave the biggest support to America by selling their oil in dollar. Well, that is going to change. Today, the Arabs are thinking of diversifying, and this is going to hit the American administration very hardly because they cannot have a better ally than Donald Trump, who did not take their opinion when he went to war on behalf of Israel, who did not ask them what's going to happen to them when they were bombed, who did not defend them, but sold them all the defense missile system they need for them to defend themselves against the incoming Iranian missile on US bases. I mean, you can't have worse than that ally. But they can't go against him. Otherwise, we will have another color revolution in every Gulf country where America will flag the uh, human rights and democracy in front of all the monarchies. And then these will say, okay, what do you want? At the very beginning of Donald Trump, they gave him $3.2 trillion to earn his favorism, and they did not manage. He still considered Israel above all these countries.
Elijah, for many years you've been involved in, or you've been witnessing what's going on in the West Asia and the American policies. We were, before coming to this live, we were to talk about the war in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Iran-Iraq war. It goes, many, many years ago. But looking at today, looking at what's going on today between the United States and Israel, it seems to me, on one side, you can say that the way that Donald Trump is calling Benjamin Netanyahu, and the way that he said this guy doesn't understand what, or JD Vance coming out and saying they need to wake up and to smell the reality of the situation they're in. And 2/3 of what they've used during the war, it was American, we paid for that. And these sort of arguments, they were not there before this war started. There is something important happening. I'm not talking about some sort of division between Israel and the United States is going to support Israel forever, in my opinion. But there is something deep happening within the establishment in the United States. This is the end. This is the maximum we could do for Israel, the war against Iran. And look at the outcome. This is the way that Robert Kagan is talking about the war. In the guy is not, he's totally, he supports Israel. He supported, the war against Iran. And right now he's coming out and saying that this war was a disaster for the United States. And you see the former politician like, Jake Sullivan coming out and saying that this is the end. This is what has happened. It was the worst outcome for the United States, for the influence of the United States in the region. One side you can say that the United States is supporting Israel without considering any other, any other equation in the region. When it's economy, petrodollar, oil supply, all of these important issues, which basically they're so much important for the American economy, looking at the big picture. But on the other hand, if you go all in to support Israel, you have to ignore, you mentioned GCC countries, you have to ignore your allies outside of the region, in Japan, in South Korea, your allies in Europe. So you have to sacrifice basically everything and support Israel with these continuous wars in the Middle East. This is the outcome so far. How deep is this sort of difference is somehow shaping or reshaping itself between the United States and Israel? Is there anything there, or it's all delusional and somehow a political theater? I don't believe that's a political theater. What is your understanding of that? You have a lot of experience on this issue.
What I can say is I can go a bit wider than that. And I would say the difference of all the wars I have covered and today, I can deduct a few important things. When I worked as a war zone on the ground covering the Israeli invasion, the Iran-Iraq war, the civil war in Lebanon, the Iran war, the Gulf War, the two Gulf Wars, the war in Yugoslavia and the former Yugoslavia, the war in Iraq 2003, in Libya, in Syria. So all these wars, there are few points today that are essential that we did not have at that time, and they were developed. And there's a big difference today, the outcome, including what happened on the 7th of October. First, we have an internet and social media where we can see all the Israeli crimes posted by the Israelis in the first place, showing off and bragging about how they are demolishing the houses, how they're killing the Palestinians, how they're bombing Gaza, how they're giving a birthday gift to the child of an Israeli officer by blowing up 3 buildings in Gaza, what they have, the atrocity that have committed. All that is today available for everybody. That we did not have during the last 35 years of wars. Secondly, we have never had Israel losing the narrative and be hated so much for its doing. Be careful, it's not the Jews, but the Israelis. Israel has lost the narrative. Israel is the most hated, according to Vice President Vance, when he said, you have, to the Israelis, you have the only remaining friend in the world, that is America. 3, Donald Trump said, in the past, if you want to reach somewhere in America, you need to be a pro-Israelis. Today is the contrary. That's Donald Trump saying it. And he considers himself the best friend of Israel. He gave the Israeli the Golan Heights. He gave them the embassy in Jerusalem. So he gave them billions of dollars, more than Joe Biden, more than Barack Obama. Unlimited support. This is what the Vice President Vance told us when he said, all the interception missile system that you are stopping the Iranian missiles come from us. But he didn't continue saying that the American Air Force, the Jordanian Air Force, the Saudi Air Force, the Emirati Air Force, or the American naval forces, everybody intercepted the missiles and the drone coming from Yemen or from Iran only to support Israel. The British in Cyprus, the base they established in Greece, everything was at the service of Israel. And yet Israel failed. And the other point I would say, we have seen the fall of the American empire. Iran was afraid of the war coming from America, saying that's a superpower and they can really damage us and change the ruling system and destroy the country. Today, Iran is freed. It has been free from that. Iran has exposed, with the war that was imposed on Iran, the vulnerability and limitation of the US military forces. Now, someone would argue that the US has thousands of nuclear missiles, but Russia has thousands of nuclear missiles and is still not managing in Ukraine. So we're not talking about nuclear capability. Israel has nuclear missiles, but using the missiles and having them, they're two different things. So what we have seen today are these 4 points, but above all, there are 2 extra points that we haven't seen before. The level of lies of the American president, who changes his mind several times in one sentence, and every day, depending on the morning or the evening, he can agree on something he has signed and revoke it. Attack during negotiation twice a country that he's negotiating with. We haven't seen that. The complete loss of credibility of the United States. In the past, it was not that reliable, but not to that level. And the last point is the violation of the international law. International law was violated in the past, but not in every single syllable and book and every single law. War crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, everything is permitted. There is no law that stands. Nothing you can say. When Donald Trump said something to Iran and the Iranians went around all the countries asking who can guarantee Donald Trump's words, no country said yes. Nobody trusts Donald Trump. When you do not trust the most powerful country in the world, and you have a president promise something and changing his mind every day and killing the ambassador and the diplomat and the negotiator, like the Israelis. The Israeli went to bomb in Qatar Hamas. the negotiation teams. They were talking with Hamas and they went to kill them in Qatar. What a difference between what Donald Trump did and Israel. So they're doing exactly the same. So this we did not see in the past. It was some of this, a little bit of everything, but not at that level.